The Great Hall on Nexus Prime was bigger than any building Jake Morrison had ever seen. The human ambassador walked slowly across the polished floor, his boots making small sounds that echoed in the huge space. Above him, strange lights from 40 different worlds cast shadows that moved like living things. He had been coming to this place for 5 years now, but today felt different. Today the air was thick with fear and anger. Jake stopped at the human section and looked around. The other ambassadors were already in their places. The tall blue Zephyrians stood like crystal trees in their area. The heavy gray Korath sat in their metal chairs, their red eyes glowing in the dim light. The snake-like Nexari moved in slow circles, never staying still for long. All of them were watching the humans with looks that Jake did not like. Captain. Lisa Barnes stood beside Jake, her hand resting on her weapon. She was a soldier, not a diplomat, but Jake was glad to have her there. Lisa had fought in the border wars 3 years ago when the Taraxians tried to take human mining colonies. She knew how these aliens thought when they were angry. "They look ready for a fight," Lisa said quietly. Jake nodded. "They have been planning this for months, maybe years." The great doors opened with a sound like thunder. High Chancellor Vexitar entered, his forearms moving as he walked. He was old, even by Zephyrian standards, and his crystal skin had turned dark blue with age. Behind him came his guards and advisors, all of them looking serious and angry. Vexitar climbed to his high seat in the center of the hall. His voice filled the space when he spoke, made loud by the translation machines that let all the different species understand each other. "We gather today to discuss a problem that threatens the peace of our galaxy," Vexitar said. "The human species has become too dangerous to remain in our community." Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had known this was coming, but hearing it said out loud made it real. Lisa moved slightly closer to him, ready to protect him if needed. "For 200 years we have watched the humans grow stronger," Vexitar continued. "They came to us as a young species asking to join our great alliance. We welcomed them, we shared our knowledge, we traded with them. We thought they would learn to follow our ways, to respect the order that has kept peace in this galaxy for thousands of years." The Chancellor's voice grew harder. "Instead, they have shown us that they cannot be trusted. They build weapons faster than any species should. They refuse to follow the laws that keep war from our worlds. They ask too many questions. They change too much, too fast." Jake looked around the hall. Most of the other ambassadors were nodding. Even the species that traded with humans regularly seemed to agree with Vexitar. Only a few looked uncomfortable, and none looked like they would speak up for humanity. "Let me tell you what the humans have done," Vexitar said, raising one of his 4 hands. A hologram appeared in the center of the hall, showing images that made Jake's heart sink. The first image showed human soldiers training on the moon of New Texas. They were practicing new fighting methods that combined human tactics with alien technology. Jake remembered approving that training program. It was meant to help human forces work better with alien allies. "They train their armies in secret," Vexitar said. "They develop new ways of fighting that could destroy the balance of power we have built." The next image showed human scientists working in laboratories. Jake recognized Dr. Amy Carter and her team working on medical research that could help all species live longer and healthier lives. "They conduct experiments that could change the very nature of life itself," Vexitar continued. "They do not ask permission. They do not consider the consequences." More images followed. Human traders working with rebel groups on the edge of Korath, space. Human engineers building faster ships than the galaxy had ever seen. Human diplomats asking difficult questions about old treaties and ancient agreements. Jake wanted to stand up and explain each image, to tell them how they were wrong about human intentions, but he could see it would not matter. The decision had already been made. This was not a trial. It was a sentencing. "The humans cannot be controlled," Vexitar said finally. "They cannot be reasoned with. They will not accept their place in the natural order. Therefore, they must be removed from our community before they destroy everything we have built." The voting began immediately. Species after species stood to announce their decision. The Zephyrians voted to expel humanity. The Korath Empire agreed. The Nexari hissed their approval. The Taraxians, who had fought humans just 3 years ago, were eager to see them gone. Jake watched as his species was condemned by beings they had considered friends. The Benthari, who bought human food and medicine, voted against humanity. The Aquarian Collective, who had signed defense treaties with Earth, chose to expel their former allies. Even the small species that humans had protected from pirates and raiders turned their backs on their protectors. When the counting was done, 38 species had voted to expel humanity from the galactic community. 9 others had chosen not to vote at all. Not one species had voted to defend humanity's right to remain. The hall was completely silent when Vextar announced the result. The decision is final. The human species is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council and from all territories controlled by member species. They have 90 days to remove all human presence from our space. Jake stood up slowly. Every eye in the Great Hall was watching him. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. What he said next would be remembered for generations. "We accept your decision," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the huge space. "Humanity will leave your territory. We will take our people, our ships, our colonies, and our knowledge. We will go quietly, without violence or revenge." He paused, looking directly at Vextar. "But I want you to remember this moment, Chancellor. Remember that you had the choice to keep us as friends. Remember that we offered to work with you, to help build something great together. Remember that when the consequences of this decision come to find you." Jake turned and walked toward the exit, Lisa beside him. Behind them, the alien ambassadors began talking in excited voices, but Jake did not look back. He had work to do. Humanity had 90 days to leave the only home among the stars they had ever known. 6 months had passed since the vote on Nexus Prime. Admiral Kevin Walsh stood on the bridge of the UES Constitution, watching the last human transport ships leave the Harvest system. Through the main screen, he could see the green and blue planet that had been home to 3 million humans for over 50 years. Now it was empty, except for the alien scavengers already moving in to claim what the humans had left behind. "Final transport clear of the system, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Beth Morgan from her station. "All human personnel and civilians have been evacuated." Kevin nodded but did not take his eyes off the planet. Harvest had been one of humanity's greatest successes. The colonists had turned a barely habitable world into a garden that fed dozens of star systems. They had built cities that worked with nature instead of destroying it. They had created something beautiful and lasting. Now the Benthari were coming to take it all. Kevin could see their fat cargo ships on the edge of the system, waiting for the humans to leave so they could claim their prize. "Dr. Carter, what is the status of the sanitization?" Kevin asked. Dr. Amy Carter looked up from her tablet. She was tired. They were all tired. The evacuation had been the biggest operation in human history, and Amy had been responsible for making sure they left nothing useful behind. "Complete, sir," Amy said. "All research data has been removed or destroyed. All manufacturing equipment has been taken or rendered useless. All computer systems have been wiped and their cores removed. The infrastructure is intact, but none of our technology or knowledge remains." Kevin smiled grimly. The aliens thought they were getting human colonies. What they were actually getting were empty shells. The real value of those worlds had been in the human knowledge and technology that made them work. Without that, the aliens would find themselves with buildings they did not understand and systems they could not maintain. "What about the agricultural systems on Harvest?" Kevin asked. "The Benthari will find fully functional farms," Amy replied. "But the seeds are gone. The soil treatments are gone. The genetic modifications that made the crops grow in Harvest's soil are gone. They will get 1 harvest, maybe 2, before the whole system fails." Kevin turned to look at Amy. "That seems cruel." Amy's expression was hard. "They voted to throw us out of our homes, Admiral. Every single one of them. I do not feel cruel. I feel practical." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Everyone there had lost something in the evacuation. Homes, friends, lives they had built over decades. The aliens had made it clear that humans were not welcome anywhere in their space. Even human children born on alien worlds had been forced to leave. "Signal from the Defiance, sir," Beth reported. "Commander Torres is ready to depart from Titan Station." "Put him through," Kevin said. The face of Commander Ryan Torres appeared on the screen. Behind him, Kevin could see the empty corridors of what had been humanity's most advanced research station. Titan Station had been where humans worked with alien scientists to develop new technologies for the benefit of all species. Now it was just another abandoned building. "Final evacuation complete, Admiral," Ryan reported. "All personnel and equipment removed. The station is structurally intact but completely gutted." "Any problems with the Korath observers?" Kevin asked. Ryan smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "They have been watching us very carefully, sir. I think they expect to find some of our military technology left behind by accident." "And what will they find?" "Empty rooms and fried computer systems. Anything they cannot understand has been removed. Anything they might be able to use has been destroyed." Kevin could see alien ships in the background of Ryan's transmission. The Korath had been especially eager to get their hands on human military technology. They had started a war with the Taraxians 2 years ago and had been losing badly until a ceasefire was arranged. They thought human weapons might give them the advantage they needed. "Good work, Commander. Fall back to the rally point and prepare for the next phase." "Yes, sir. Torres out." The screen went dark. Kevin looked around. His bridge crew. These were good people, loyal and professional. They deserved better than exile from the only civilization they had ever known. "Admiral," Beth said quietly, "incoming transmission from the surface of Harvest. The Benthari are asking about the agricultural protocols." Kevin laughed, surprising himself. "Already? They have not even finished moving in and they are having problems." "What should I tell them, sir?" "Tell them that all technical support ended when the evacuation was completed. If they want to learn how to run human systems, they can figure it out themselves." Kevin walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out, there beyond the edge of the galaxy, was humanity's future. They were heading into unknown space with every ship, every person, every piece of technology they could carry. It was the greatest journey in human history and no one knew what they would find. "Dr. Carter," Kevin said, "how many people did we evacuate in total?" 12,300,000, Amy replied immediately. "Plus all AI systems and data cores. We also removed approximately 60% of our industrial capacity and 90% of our advanced research equipment, and the aliens think we just gave up and ran away," Kevin said. "Let them think that," Amy said. "By the time they realize what they have lost, we will be far beyond their reach." The Constitution began to turn away from Harvest, joining the stream of human ships heading for the galactic edge. Behind them, alien vessels moved in to claim the empty worlds. Kevin wondered how long it would take them to understand their mistake. On the planet's surface, the first Benthari colonists were already discovering problems. The atmospheric processors were working, but no one understood how to maintain them. The power systems were online, but the control interfaces were designed for human hands and human thinking. The farm equipment was intact, but the instruction manuals were gone and the maintenance schedules were encrypted. Within days, the Benthari would be sending desperate messages asking for human technical support. Within weeks, other species would be having the same problems on other former human worlds. The aliens had wanted the benefits of human civilization without the humans themselves. They were about to learn that the two could not be separated. But by then, the human fleet would be gone, disappeared into the dark between galaxies. The aliens would be left to struggle with technology they did not understand, in colonies they could not maintain, wondering why everything the humans had made seemed to be breaking down. Kevin watched the stars ahead. Humanity was going into exile, but they were not going as refugees. They were going as explorers, carrying everything they needed to build a new civilization far from alien interference. And when they returned, if they returned, they would be something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The last Human ship cleared the edge of known space and vanished into the dark. Behind them, the galaxy began to learn what it had lost. 10 years had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the edge of the galaxy. Dr. HFY sat in his laboratory on the Korath homeworld, staring at tactical displays that should have been showing him new battle strategies. Instead, the same old patterns repeated endlessly across his screens. HFY was considered one of the finest military minds in the Korath Empire. For 30 years, he had developed new ways of fighting that had kept his people ahead of their enemies. But now, no matter how hard he tried, every simulation ended the same way. Predictable moves leading to predictable results. Computer, run. Tactical scenario Delta 7 again, HFY said. The holographic display showed 2 fleets facing each other in space. The red ships represented Korath forces. The blue ships were Taraxian. HFY watched as the battle played out exactly as it had the previous 50 times. The Korath fleet would advance in formation Alpha 3. The Taraxians would respond with defensive pattern 6. The battle would last exactly 43 minutes and end with moderate losses on both sides. Computer, introduce random variables and run again. The same battle played out with minor variations. A ship here or there might survive longer, but the overall pattern never changed. HFY rubbed his eyes with his clawed hands. When had warfare become so boring? He remembered the simulations from 12 years ago, when humans had still been part of the galactic community. Back then, every war game had been an adventure. Human commanders would do impossible things. They would attack when they should defend. They would retreat when they should advance. They would use their own ships as weapons, sacrifice expensive vessels to save cheap ones, and somehow turn certain defeat into unlikely victory. The other species had complained about human unpredictability. They said it was impossible to plan battles when humans might do anything. They said human tactics were chaotic and dangerous. But HFY had learned more about warfare from fighting against human strategies than he had in all his previous years of study. Now the humans were gone and warfare had become a mathematical exercise. Every species fought the same way their ancestors had fought for thousands of years. There were no surprises, no innovations, no moments of brilliant madness that could change everything. Dr. HFY, report to command center immediately, came, a voice from the wall speaker. HFY left his laboratory and walked through the corridors of the military complex. Other Korath moved past him, all of them looking as bored and frustrated as he felt. The Empire was at peace, but it was the peace of stagnation. In the command center, General Vorthak was waiting with a collection of charts and reports spread across a large table. The old general looked tired. Leading an empire was easier when there were enemies to fight and problems to solve. HFY, I need your opinion on the economic reports, Vorthak said without greeting. HFY looked at the charts. They showed trade volumes, manufacturing output, and resource allocation across Korath space. Every line was going down. The problem is simple, HFY said after studying the data. We have no one to sell to. Explain. The humans were our biggest customers for rare metals and advanced materials. They bought things that other species considered too expensive or too dangerous to use. Without them, we are producing goods that no one wants. Vorthak nodded grimly. The Nexari are having the same problem. Their mineral exports have dropped by 60%. The Benthari cannot sell their agricultural surplus. Even the Zephyrians are struggling because no one needs their luxury goods. HFY picked up another report. This one detailed the problems on former human worlds. The colonies are failing. All of them, Vorthak confirmed. The atmospheric processors on New Denver stopped working 6 months ago. The Taraxians who live there now cannot figure out how to fix them. The hydroponic farms on Harvest collapsed after 2 growing seasons. The Benthari are asking for technical assistance, but no one understands human engineering well enough to help. What about the research stations? Abandoned. The Aquarians tried to continue the work at Titan Station, but they could not operate the equipment. Most of it seems to require some kind of human interface that we cannot duplicate. HFY sat down heavily. We destroyed them. Who? The humans. We threw them out because we were afraid of what they might become. Now look at us. 10 years without them and our civilization is falling apart. Vorthak was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated a holographic display showing the galactic map. Red areas marked regions where economic activity was declining. Yellow areas showed political instability. Blue areas indicated technological problems. Most of the galaxy was red, yellow, or blue. It is worse than that, Vorthak said. 3. Minor species have already asked to rejoin the human exodus. They want to leave galactic space and follow wherever the humans went. That is impossible. We do not know where they went. Exactly. They disappeared beyond the galactic edge with no forwarding address. For all we know, they are all dead. Zexai studied the map. What does the council say? Chancellor Vextar refuses to admit there is a problem. He says the galaxy is adjusting to a new equilibrium. He claims that removing human chaos was necessary for long-term stability. And the other species? Half of them agree with Vextar. The other half are starting to ask uncomfortable questions about whether we made a mistake. Zexai looked at a report from the border worlds. Pirates are becoming a problem again. Without human patrol fleets, yes. The humans used to police the trade routes in their spare time. They said it was good training for their crews. Now merchant ships are being attacked regularly, and no one wants to spend the resources to stop it. The Korath Navy could handle it. Could we? Our ships are designed to fight other major fleets, not chase fast raiders through asteroid fields. The humans had small, quick ships that were perfect for that kind of work. Zexai realized something that made his stomach cold. We have forgotten how to innovate. What do you mean? For 200 years, humans were constantly creating new solutions to old problems. They forced us all to think differently, to try new approaches. Now that they are gone, we have fallen back into old patterns. We are doing things the way we have always done them. Vorthak turned off the holographic display. The Zephyrian ambassador said something interesting last week. He said that humans were like a fire that kept our civilizations warm. We complained about the smoke and the danger, so we put out the fire. Now we are freezing in the dark. Can we contact them? Zexai asked. The humans. We tried. Long-range communications show nothing. Either they are too far away to receive our signals, or they are not interested in talking to us. Zexai thought about the tactical simulations in his laboratory. Boring, predictable patterns that never changed. What if they come back? The humans? Yes. What if they return someday? What do you think they will be like? Vorthak was quiet for a long time. I think, he said finally, that 25 years of freedom from our rules and restrictions will have changed them. I think they will be very different from the humans we remember. Different how? I do not know, but I suspect we will not like the answer. Zexai left the command center with a feeling of dread growing in his chest. The galaxy had wanted the humans gone because they were afraid of human potential. Now that potential was developing somewhere beyond their reach, beyond their influence, beyond their control. The humans had left quietly, without violence or revenge. But Zexai suspected their story was far from over. Somewhere in the dark, between galaxies, humanity was becoming something new, and when they finished becoming it, they might decide to come home. The alarm that woke Admiral Korthak from his sleep was not one he had ever heard before. The sound was urgent and confused, as if the ship's computer could not decide what kind of threat it was detecting. Korthak rolled out of his bed and grabbed his uniform, his mind already working through possibilities. Pirates did not trigger alarms like this, neither did equipment failures or natural phenomena. Admiral, to the bridge immediately, came the voice of his tactical officer over the ship's communication system. We have a situation. Korthak ran through the corridors of the battleship Iron Fist, his clawed feet clicking on the metal floors. The ship was the pride of the Korath Navy, equipped with the most advanced sensors and weapons in the fleet. If something had surprised his crew, it was something unprecedented. The bridge was in chaos when he arrived. Officers were shouting reports at each other while holographic displays showed readings that made no sense. His tactical officer, Commander Velhan, turned to face him with wide eyes. Admiral, long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet at the edge of the system, Velhan reported. Estimated count is over 3,000 vessels. 3,000? Korthak moved to his command chair and activated his personal displays. Who has a fleet that large, the Zephyrians? Sir, the ships are not of any known design. They appear to be human in origin, but they are unlike any human vessels in our databases. Korthak stared at the sensor readings. The fleet was positioned just inside the edge of the Korath home system, close enough to be clearly detected, but far enough away to avoid immediate engagement. It was a perfect demonstration of strength without aggression. How did they get past? Our early warning stations? Korthak asked. They did not, sir. The stations show no record of anything entering the system. The fleet simply appeared on our sensors 12 minutes ago. That is impossible. Yes, sir. It should be impossible. Korthak studied the tactical display. The human ships were arranged, in formations he had never seen before. They moved with perfect coordination as if controlled by a single mind. Most disturbing of all, the energy signatures coming from the vessels were far beyond anything in the galactic database. Send a probe to get better readings, Korthak ordered. Already done, sir. We launched a reconnaissance probe 8 minutes ago. And? Contact was lost after 1.3 seconds. The probe appears to have been completely destroyed. Korthak felt his blood grow cold. A probe moving at that speed should have been able to transmit data for at least 30 seconds before the humans could respond to it. Either human technology had advanced far beyond galactic standards, or they had been waiting for the probe, and destroyed it instantly. Incoming transmission, reported the communications officer. It is being broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Korath, Zephyrian, and 37 other languages simultaneously. Put it through. The main screen changed to show the bridge of a human ship. The man who appeared there was clearly human, but he was different from the humans Korthak remembered. His eyes held an intelligence that seemed to process information, faster than any biological mind should be able to work. His presence filled the screen with a sense of controlled power that made Korthak step backward involuntarily. I am Captain Alan Brooks of the Human Expeditionary Force, the man said. His voice was calm and professional, but there was something underneath it that suggested terrible strength held in check. I am transmitting this message to all military and civilian authorities in this system. The captain paused, and Korthak had the uncomfortable feeling that those strange eyes were looking directly at him, despite the fact that this was clearly a recorded message. 25 years ago, the species of this galaxy voted to expel humanity from our homes. We accepted that decision and left peacefully. Now we have returned to reclaim what was taken from us. Behind Captain Brooks, Korthak could see other humans moving around their bridge. They all had the same unsettling quality of enhanced intelligence and barely contained power. All non-human populations currently occupying former human territories have 72 hours to evacuate those worlds completely. This includes all civilians, military personnel, equipment, and installations. After that deadline, we will consider any remaining presence to be hostile occupation. The message continued, but Korthak was not listening anymore. He was staring at the readings his sensors were showing him. The human ships were not just advanced, they were impossible. Power outputs that violated known physics, hull materials that did not exist in any database, weapon signatures that suggested destructive capabilities beyond imagination. Sir, Velhan said quietly, what are your orders? Korthak realized that his entire crew was looking at him, waiting for him to make a decision that could determine the fate of his species. He was a military officer with 40 years of experience, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this moment. Get me a direct line to High Command, he said. Priority Alpha. Inform them that humanity has returned and they are not the same species that left. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were called and cancelled as species tried to decide how to respond. Military fleets were mobilized and then recalled as commanders realized they were facing technology they could not match. The human demands were simple and non-negotiable. Every world that had been human before the exile was to be evacuated immediately. No exceptions would be made for strategic importance or economic value. No compensation would be paid for abandoned installations or lost investments. Some species tried to negotiate. The Benthari ambassador attempted to arrange a gradual withdrawal from harvest that would allow them to complete their harvest season. The humans' response was to demonstrate their new capabilities by disintegrating an unmanned Benthari cargo ship at the molecular level. The ship simply ceased to exist, leaving no debris, no energy signature, no trace that it had ever been there. Other species tried to resist. The Taraxian Defense Force sent a battle group to reinforce their positions on New Denver. The human response was swift and terrifying. The Taraxian ships found themselves unable to move, unable to communicate, unable to fight. Their weapons would not fire, their engines would not start. Their computers showed only a simple message: leave now or be removed. The Taraxians left. As the deadline approached, the evacuations began in earnest. Millions of aliens packed their belongings and fled from worlds they had considered their own. They left behind cities, farms, factories, and entire civilizations built over 25 years of occupation. The humans watched from their ships but did not interfere with the evacuations. They offered no assistance, but they also made no threats beyond the original deadline. They simply waited with the patience of beings who had transcended normal limitations. When the 72 hours expired, human ships began descending to the planetary surfaces. The beings that emerged were recognizably human, but they had clearly evolved far beyond their original form. They moved with inhuman grace and coordination. They worked with tools and technologies that seemed more like magic than science. Most disturbing of all, they showed no interest in communicating with the galaxy that had exiled them. When alien ambassadors tried to establish contact, the humans simply ignored them. It was as if the rest of the galaxy had become irrelevant to their concerns. Within weeks, the former human worlds were restored to full functionality. Cities that had taken decades to build were reconstructed in days. Agricultural systems that had failed under alien management began producing food again. Manufacturing facilities that had been abandoned started operating at levels beyond their original capacity. The galaxy watched in fascination and growing fear as humanity demonstrated capabilities that bordered on the divine. These were not the same humans who had been exiled 25 years ago. These were something new, something powerful, something that had no need for the approval or cooperation of lesser species. The question that haunted every alien leader was simple: what did these new humans want? And more importantly, what would they do to get it? The neutral station floating in the empty space between star systems had been built specifically for this meeting. No species wanted to host the gathering on their homeworld, and the humans had made it clear they would not come to any world controlled by the Galactic Council. So the station hung in the void like a small metal moon, equipped with the best diplomatic facilities that 37 species could provide. Chancellor Vextar stood at the observation deck, looking out at the human fleet that surrounded the station. Even after 6 months of reports and sensor readings, seeing the ships with his own eyes was still shocking. They moved like living things, flowing through space in patterns that seemed organic rather than mechanical. Their hulls were dark and smooth, reflecting starlight in ways that hurt to look at directly. "They are beautiful," said Ambassador Sevlon of the Aquarian Collective, joining Vextar at the window. "And terrifying." Vextar nodded without speaking. In all his years as Chancellor, he had never faced a situation like this. The humans had retaken their worlds without firing a shot, demonstrated technological superiority that bordered on magic, and then simply ignored every attempt at communication from the galactic community. They had become a force that operated outside all known rules of politics and diplomacy. "Do you think she will actually come?" Sevlon asked. "Dr. Griffin?" "Yes, she will come. Humans have always been curious about what others think of them. That much has not changed." The door to the observation deck opened and Ambassador Kithara of the Nexari entered, moving with the nervous energy of her species. "The human delegation has docked," she reported. "They will be here in 10 minutes. Vextar straightened his formal robes and checked his translation device. This conversation would determine the future relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. He could not afford any misunderstandings. The main conference room had been designed to accommodate representatives from dozens of different species. The table was round, with no head position to indicate superiority. The lighting was carefully balanced to be comfortable for all known forms of vision. Environmental controls maintained atmosphere and gravity settings that every species could tolerate. None of that seemed to matter when Dr. Nancy Griffin entered the room. She was clearly human, but she had been changed in ways that were both subtle and profound. Her movements were too fluid, too precise. Her eyes held depths of intelligence that seemed almost infinite. Most unsettling of all, her presence filled the room with a sense of controlled power that made every alien representative step back instinctively. Behind her came two other humans who served as her escorts. They wore simple uniforms that seemed to be made of materials that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. They took positions near the door and stood perfectly still, but Vextar had the feeling they could move faster than any biological creature should be able to. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Vextar said, gesturing to a seat across from his own position. Dr. Griffin sat down with movements that seemed to flow like water. "You wanted to talk," she said simply. "So talk." Her voice was human, but there was something underneath it that suggested vast depths of knowledge and experience. Vextar had prepared a formal speech about diplomatic relations and mutual cooperation, but looking into those strange eyes, he decided to be direct. "We want to understand what you have become," he said. "Do you?" Dr. Griffin tilted her head slightly. 25 years ago, you voted us out of your community because you were afraid of what we might become. Now you want to understand what your fear created. We made mistakes, Ambassador Sevlon said. We realize that now. The galaxy has not been the same since humanity left. Dr. Griffin's expression did not change. Tell me about these mistakes. For the next hour, the alien representatives took turns describing the problems that had developed since humanity's exile. Economic stagnation as human innovation disappeared. Technological regression as human knowledge was lost. Social problems, as the dynamic energy humans brought to every interaction vanished from galactic civilization. Dr. Griffin listened without comment until they were finished. Then she activated a device that projected holographic images into the center of the room. While you have been dealing with those problems, she said, we have been dealing with these. The first image showed a vast structure floating in the void between galaxies. It was clearly artificial, but its size was beyond comprehension. It stretched for light years in every direction, dwarfing entire star systems. This is a harvester, ship belonging to a species we call the Devourers, Dr. Griffin explained. They consume entire galaxies, processing all matter and energy into forms they can use. They have already eaten 17 galaxies that we know of. The next image showed creatures that seemed to be made of living metal and energy. They moved through space without ships, traveling faster than light through methods that violated every known law of physics. These are the shepherds. They view biological life as a disease that must be cured. They have sterilized over 40 galaxies, leaving nothing but dead rock and empty space. More images followed. Machine intelligences that could break down reality itself at the quantum level. Hive minds that turned entire species into mindless drones. Energy beings that fed on the life force of living worlds. The galaxy you live in is an island of peace in an ocean of horrors, Dr. Griffin continued. You have been protected by your isolation and your insignificance. But that protection is ending. Vextar felt his blood turn cold. How do you know this? Because we have been fighting them for 25 years, Dr. Griffin said simply. While you worried about your economic problems and political squabbles, we have been holding the line against threats that could destroy all life in this galaxy. She gestured, and the holographic display changed to show human ships engaged in battles against impossible enemies. The humans were using weapons that seemed to bend space and time, deploying technologies that operated on principles no galactic scientist could understand. We have become what we needed to become to survive, Dr. Griffin said. We have enhanced our minds to think faster and more clearly. We have modified our bodies to be stronger and more resilient. We have created technologies that you would consider miraculous or impossible. But you are still human, Sevlon said hopefully. Dr. Griffin was quiet for a long moment. Are we? We have retained some human characteristics because we chose to. Compassion, curiosity, the desire to protect those weaker than ourselves, but we have also become something that humanity was never meant to be. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at her fleet. We could destroy every species in this galaxy without effort. We could remake your worlds according to our will. We could force you to live by our rules and follow our commands. The alien representative sat in terrified silence. But we choose not to, Dr. Griffin continued. Despite everything you did to us, we still consider this galaxy our home. We will protect it from the threats that are coming, whether you want our protection or not. What do you want from us? Vextar asked. Dr. Griffin turned back to face them. Nothing. Continue living your lives as you always have. Trade with each other, fight your small wars, pursue your petty politics. We will handle the real threats. And if we refuse your protection, then you will die when the devourers arrive. Your choice will not affect ours. She walked toward the door, her escorts falling into step behind her. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. One more thing, she said. The next time you see human ships in your space, do not interfere with them. Do not approach them, do not scan them, do not attempt to communicate with them. We have work to do, and we will not allow anyone to delay us. Dr. Griffin left the conference room, taking her escorts with her. The alien representatives sat in shocked silence, trying to process what they had learned. Humanity had returned to the galaxy, but they had not come back as the species that had been exiled 25 years ago. They had become something beyond the imagination of any alien mind. They were guardians now, protectors of a galaxy that had rejected them, defenders against threats that no other species could face. The age of human dominance had begun, and there was nothing the galaxy could do to stop it. All they could do was hope that somewhere in their transformed nature, the humans still remembered what it meant to be merciful.